Hi, so one learning target that I was really thinking about this week and that I was trying to bring in to my 30-minute lesson was just using my signature pedagogy and being able to execute it based on the changes made from my peer feedback. So I was really looking through and reading a lot of the peer feedback and trying to incorporate that into my longer lesson because I felt like it was important to take what other educators are saying and kind of modify my lesson and make it more applicable to them. And so I do think I made progress towards this in my second lesson, and I did this by incorporating songs in a more holistic way. The first time the song was just kind of like an add-on and didn't add anything to the lesson. Personally, that was what I thought kind of happened. And this one I felt like doing it during the group project made it a little more holistic, and it gave somebody something to think of while they were doing their independent research and that kind of thing. So it became a part of the lesson in a bit more of a cohesive way. I was also trying to focus on the historical fiction aspect of it. A lot of the comments I got were that it was too long of a piece and that it didn't really change the way in which students learned. It didn't add anything. It just kind of was there. So I wanted to make that resource more efficient, and by doing that I shortened the text of historical fiction, and I was using it as a means to teach perspective rather than the history and the content itself. I felt like doing a more explicit, direct slideshow of the actual history and then using the historical fiction to teach how the public perceived it, how people felt about it, was a bit more engaging and I think more clear and all that kind of stuff. So like you weren't having to sort out between what is actually fiction and what is actually history, but instead just like being able to use how others were feeling to add on to the historical context and the historical facts that were already present. Also, I definitely had more scaffolding and support for L students during my second lesson. I incorporated the sentence starters and I had the evaluative criteria and everything so kids could know what they were going into. Also, I was able to tie it into teen culture again with the recipes and allowing them autonomy and creativity in researching their own regions and everything. And one thing that really made me happy was how Katie was able to find a primary source from San Pedro, where she's from, and she was kind of saying that it's not a super big town, like doesn't produce much stuff, but it was really cool and I think almost full circle kind of for her to be able to find that kind of a primary source from somewhere that she's so familiar with and something that's so dear to her heart. So just letting students pick their own regions and whatever they were interested in, I think really made a difference in the amount of engagement that we had with that activity and the excitement. So that was a plus. I definitely think that this learning target is important for me personally because I value feedback so much, especially from my colleagues, because it helps me recognize the needs of them and expose the flaws and imperfections in my signature pedagogy. And being able to get feedback from these my colleagues who are also in education rather than just students themselves is even better because they can help give me concrete ways to fix it and to rework it based on advice from other educators rather than purely students. Definitely I want to continue my learning in my signature pedagogy and just this idea of incorporating different kinds of feedback by trying out my lessons with real students and in a real classroom with a real 50-minute period. Of course, that's the goal, right? That's the dream. That's what everybody wants. But I think it is a little bit different teaching to college students. Clearly, college students are never going to really raise their hand and ask like clarification questions or historical background questions or all this kind of stuff because most of the time they already know. And also we're in a setting where we know the person who is trying to teach is doing their best, and a lot of times I feel even if we are lost a little bit during the lesson, we don't want to interject because we don't want to ruin what they have going on, right? But real students aren't worried about ruining the teacher's lesson. They're here to learn. They want to know everything that they can, right? So they're willing to make those questions and kind of utilize time in a different way. A lot of us didn't want to like cut into each other's time by asking questions, so I think that was a big part of it. But I'm really excited for students to ask questions and for me to be able to see what they want to learn more about, where they might be having a little bit of trouble and where I can help them and how to assist. So I think just having those clarifications and that kind of real life knowledge, I think, is how I will best continue my learning and best refine my signature pedagogy. Ultimately, of course, it's going to be done in the classroom and each class is going to be different based on the students that I have in it. So, I mean, it does really depend, but I think that's the next goal. So, yeah, thank you so much.